He used to wave at me from the porch, said I was sweet like honeysuckle. I was 7. He was a grown man with yellow teeth and a smile that split my skin in places no one could see. When I told Mama what he did, she said I must have misunderstood. Said Brother Wallace was a good Christian man. That little girls who lied went to hell. I remember standing there, sticky with fear, and thinking, if hell was real, I was already in it. Because the man who touched me still brought pies to our door. And the woman who birthed me, she shut her eyes and called it grace. My name is Eunice Lorene Bradley. I'm 73 years old, born and raised in Savannah, Georgia, just off East Broad Street, in a shotgun house with peeling paint and a porch swing that creaked like it was telling secrets. I was the middle child, the quiet one, always watching. Mama kept her hair in a tight bun and her Bible under her arm. Daddy worked the docks till his back gave out. We didn't have much, but we had rules. And rule number 1? Don't bring shame to this house. I learned early how to fold myself into silence, how to make my voice small enough to keep Mama smiling. But there was one thing I couldn't swallow. One night, one man, one truth that burned through my throat no matter how many times she told me to bury it. That man lived next door. He sang in the choir. He brought us canned peaches, and he stole something from me I ain't ever gotten back. But this time, I'm not keeping quiet. If you've ever been told to keep it in the family, if your truth was ignored for the sake of appearances, let Eunice know she's not alone. Drop your city in the comments. Hit that like button if her courage matters. And don't forget to subscribe, because every time you listen, you help break the silence for someone else. When I think about childhood, I don't think about birthday cakes or jump rope songs. I think about the porch next door, and the man who sat behind its railings like a king on a throne no one dared question. His name was Wallace. Folks called him Brother Wallace at church, like that made him holy. He wore overalls in the summer and a wool coat in the winter, even when the sun blistered. Always had a toothpick in his mouth and a tune on his lips. Mama said he was respectable, said he helped bury her cousin and fix the roof on the church for free. But I knew better. He'd watch me when I played hopscotch in the dirt, said things like, that dress getting shorter every week, or, you best not be growing up too fast, Eunice. I was 7. Didn't even know what growing up meant, but I knew I didn't like how he looked at me, didn't like how his voice slid under my skin like something wet and heavy. One day, Mama sent me over with a pie, said it was the Christian thing to do. I didn't want to go. My hands shook holding that foil-wrapped dish. He opened the door before I even knocked. Come on in, sweet girl, he said. It's hot out. I hesitated. He smiled. That smile. The kind that tells you nothing good is coming, but no one's going to believe you when it arrives. I stepped inside. The air smelled like dust and wood polish and something I didn't have words for yet. He took the pie, set it on the table, then put his hand on my shoulder, too firm, too familiar. You're a little woman now, he said. Ain't that right? I didn't answer. I just stood there, counting the tiles on the floor, waiting for it to be over. The first time it happened, it was quick. Not that it felt quick. Time has a way of stretching when fear takes hold. But in real life, in grown-up time, it couldn't have been more than 2 minutes. Just long enough to steal something you can't get back. He'd closed the door. That's what stuck with me most afterward. Brother Wallace, with his God bless you voice and sugar-slick smile, closed the door like we were having a private meeting, like I was grown, like I'd asked for something. He touched my leg, said he liked how polite I was, how quiet, how I didn't sass back like other girls. I didn't understand all his words, but I understood the tone. The way his hand moved too slow, the way my stomach dropped like I was falling off a swing. I looked at the door. It had a little crack of light where it didn't close all the way. That crack saved me. Because when Mama called my name from across the yard, I bolted. Didn't wait for permission. Didn't say goodbye. Just ran. Pie forgotten. Thank yous unsaid. Mama didn't notice. Anything strange. She was pulling laundry off the line, humming something from Sunday service. When I reached her, breathless, she laughed. "You actin' like the devil himself was behind you," she said. I almost told her. I opened my mouth. My lips even shaped the words. But then she added, "That man's been good to this family. Don't make a fool of yourself." And just like that, the words shrank back down my throat. I didn't try again. Not then, not for a long time. Because I realized something. That day, the door might not be locked, but nobody was coming in to save me. I was quiet for 3 days after that. Didn't talk much at dinner, didn't go outside, didn't even hum to myself like I usually did when I helped Mama shell peas on the porch. Mama noticed, but not enough. "You coming down with something?" she asked, feeling my forehead. I shook my head. She frowned. "Well, don't go catching a spirit of laziness. There's work to be done." That was her way. If it couldn't be seen or swept, it wasn't real. On the 4th day, I tried again. We were in the kitchen, just us. I said, real soft, "Mama, Brother Wallace touched me." She didn't even turn from the stove. "What?" He touched me when I took him the pie." The air went still. She stirred the pot like she hadn't heard right, then finally turned. "Touched you how?" I stared at the floor, didn't know how to say it, didn't even know the words for what it meant. Her eyes narrowed. "Eunice Lorene Bradley, if this is one of your stories." I shook my head. "It's not." She took a breath, slow and sharp. Then she said something I will never forget. "He's a man of the church. You must have misunderstood. That man prayed over your daddy's casket." As if that meant something. As if prayer made people safe. I opened my mouth again, desperate, but she raised her hand like a stop sign. "That man's done more for this family than your daddy ever did. Don't go ruining reputations with that wild little imagination of yours." I felt something drop inside me then, like a pane of glass cracking. Not loud, just final. I nodded and said nothing else. Because Mama didn't want the truth. She wanted quiet, and I was the only one willing to give it to her. After that day in the kitchen, something shifted between me and Mama. She didn't punish me, didn't hit me, didn't even raise her voice. But she watched me different, like I was a problem that needed managing. She didn't send me to Brother Wallace's anymore. But not because she believed me. No. It was because she didn't want me making things weird. I learned that phrase real quick. Don't make things weird. It meant, don't bring up what makes people uncomfortable. Don't say what you know. Don't name what you feel. Just keep it tidy. Keep it moving. And most of all, keep it quiet. So I did. At church, I sat through sermons where Wallace led prayer like nothing ever happened. I watched him shake hands and say, "Bless you, child," to little girls in their Sunday sio dresses, and I held my breath every time. I stopped playing in the yard, stopped speaking up in class, stopped laughing at things that used to make me giggle till I snorted. I folded myself into silence the way Mama folded bed sheets, tight, neat, tucked in at the corners. It became a habit, a way to survive, and folks noticed, just not in the way I needed. They said I was maturing fast, said I was so well behaved, said Mama was lucky to have a daughter who knew how to carry herself. But I didn't feel lucky. I felt hollow, like I was living from the outside in, all image, no air. And Mama? She just kept cooking, kept ironing, kept going to prayer meetings, like the cost of peace was pretending, and I was the one paying the price. Church used to feel like a place where nothing bad could follow me. The wooden pews, the tambourines, the rhythm of hymnals held tight in old hands. It was all comfort once, until Wallace's voice started filling the sanctuary. After what happened, His voice became a weapon. He'd lead the choir in blessed assurance, and all I could hear was the sound of his breath behind me that day. The creak of his floorboards, the words he whispered that I still couldn't repeat, even in my own head. People shouted Amen when he sang. Mama shouted loudest. And I sat there, a statue in patent leather shoes, biting the inside of my cheek so I wouldn't scream. I stopped singing. That's when folks started asking questions. "You feeling all right, Eunice? You used to be so joyful. Maybe you need more prayer." Prayer? Prayer hadn't saved me. It had silenced me. Because the man who hurt me prayed over our meals, prayed over sick babies, prayed with his hand on my shoulder like he hadn't already touched places he had no right to. I started skipping church when I could. Told Mama I had headaches. She gave me castor oil and side-eye. "You always had a flair for the dramatic," she muttered once. I wanted to tell her the truth wasn't drama. It was survival. But what good would that do? She'd already chosen her truth, and it didn't have room for mine. So I sat in my room on Sundays, listening to the choir rise and fall through the open window, listening to Wallace's voice float down the block like smoke, and wondering if one day someone else would believe me, or if I'd carry this alone forever. I was 12 when I found the book. It was hidden on the back shelf of the school library, wedged between a math workbook and a dog-eared dictionary. The cover was plain, just brown cloth with no title. But inside? Inside was a story about a girl like me. Not exactly. She didn't live in Savannah, didn't wear pressed Sunday dresses or eat lima beans with cornbread on a porch full of secrets. But she knew things. She knew what it was like to be small in a world that didn't believe girls, to be touched and told to stay quiet, to speak and be punished for it. I read that book 3 times before I ever checked it out. I was scared to bring it home, scared Mama might open it, might see herself in the mother who turned away, might rip out the pages like truth could be erased with fingers. But one day I did it, checked it out, wrapped it in newspaper, hid it under my bed. And at night, I read it with a flashlight, blanket pulled over my head like a secret fort. It was the first time I didn't feel crazy. The first time I realized what happened to me had a name. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't imagination. It was wrong. And I wasn't the only one it had happened to. The book didn't save me, but it saw me. And that gave me just enough breath to keep going. Not free, not healed, but awake. And I started to wonder, if one book could tell the truth, maybe one girl could too. Maybe even one from Savannah, with a mother who wouldn't listen and a voice still learning how to rise. By 13, I was tired of whispering. Not out loud, not yet. But inside, I'd been whispering for years, to God, to myself, to the part of me that still hoped someone would hear me without me having to scream. And then one day, I didn't whisper. Not even in my head. I said it, out loud. I was alone in the backyard, hanging clothes on the line. The sun was high, bees buzzing near the honeysuckle, and Mama was at Sister Geraldine's, praying over someone's back pain. I had a sock in one hand, a clothespin in the other, and suddenly the words came out. Wallace touched me. No one was around. No one heard. But I did, and the air didn't. Crack. The earth didn't open. God didn't strike me down. And something in me said, say it again. So I did, louder. Wallace touched me. And then louder. Wallace touched me. I said it 10 times that day. Not to anyone else, just to the trees, the sky, my own chest. But it was the first time I didn't flinch at the sound of my own truth. It didn't make me feel better, not really. But it made me feel real. And when Mama got home and asked why I looked flushed, I said I was just tired. But I wasn't tired. I was lit up from the inside, because for the first time since that door closed behind me all those years ago, I didn't feel like I had to lie to myself. And that That was the beginning. That summer, Wallace got sick. Not the kind that puts you in the hospital, the kind that keeps you in bed with fans in the window and church folks bringing casseroles in foil pans. Mama sent me to take him soup. I stared at the pot on the stove like it might explode. "Go on now," she said. "You're old enough to run a dish next door." I didn't move. She looked up from the sink, brows tight. "You hearing me, Eunice?" "I'm not going," I said. The words came out flat, clean, no tremble, just truth. Mama turned slow, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Excuse me?" "I'm not going," I repeated. "He made me uncomfortable. I told you before." There it was, the air cracked open. She stared at me like I'd cursed in church. "You bringing that up again?" I nodded, because it never stopped mattering. She stepped closer, voice sharp. "You gon' hold a grudge forever?" "No," I said, "just my ground." We stood there in that kitchen, heat humming through the windows, soup bubbling behind us. She didn't slap me, didn't shout. She just picked up the pot herself and walked it over. Didn't say a word to me the rest of the day, but I wasn't waiting for her approval anymore. That night, I sat on the porch by myself. Didn't rock, didn't sing, just breathed, because I hadn't crossed the street. I hadn't fed the man who broke me, and Mama's silence, it didn't hurt as bad as my own had. I started riding the bus that fall. Not far, just to the library, sometimes to the drugstore downtown. But it felt like something. Movement, air, choice. I kept a folded bus schedule in my back pocket like a secret map. Highlighted the routes out of our neighborhood, marked transfer stops, learned the names of streets that didn't smell like the past. Mama thought I was helping with errands. Sometimes I was. But most days, I just needed space. Needed to see something that wasn't him, wasn't her, wasn't that house. At the library, I found a flyer pinned to the bulletin board near the front. Youth Writing Contest. Tell your story. I stared at it so long, the librarian asked if I was okay. I nodded, tore off one of the tabs with the contact number, and slipped it in my shoe. I didn't think I'd enter, but I couldn't let it go. That night, I pulled out the old book I'd hidden years earlier, the one that first told me I wasn't alone. And I wrote. Not a story with characters, not a poem, just a truth. My neighbor touched me, my mama didn't believe me, but I'm still here. It wasn't long, it wasn't elegant, but it was mine. I folded the paper into my pillowcase, and for the first time I fell asleep not trying to forget, but trying to remember what it felt like to speak, even if no one ever read it, even if it never left the house. I had started writing my way out. And one day, I'd be ready to finish that story in the open. I mailed it on a Tuesday, walked 3 blocks to the blue postal box near the corner store, hands trembling like it was a bomb, not a folded piece of paper. No return address, just the contest entry, typed at the library under a name that wasn't mine. Lorene B. My middle name and the first initial of my last. That's all they'd get. It wasn't about winning. It was about letting my words go, letting them exist somewhere outside my chest. When the letter slid through the slot, I stood there for a full minute after, wondering if it would echo when it hit the bottom. It didn't, but something in me did. Later that week, I almost told Mama. We were sitting at the kitchen table, shelling peas like we used to. For a moment, she looked soft, like the woman I remembered before all this. "I've been writing," I said, casually. She didn't look up. "Writing what?" "Just thoughts," I shrugged. "Nothing big." She sniffed. "You better not. Be telling folks family business. Ain't nothing worse than a girl with a loose pen." I didn't respond, because her words didn't scare me anymore. They just reminded me of why I wrote in the first place. To say what others refused to hear. A month passed. Then a letter arrived at the library. They'd posted the winners on the bulletin board near the front. And there it was. 2nd place. Still Here, by Lorene B. I stared at it like it wasn't real. The librarian smiled. "Whoever she is, she said, she's brave." I nodded. "She is," and I meant it. That day, I walked home with my chin a little higher, because somewhere, someone had read my pain and didn't turn away. The library held a small event for the contest winners. Nothing fancy, just a circle of folding chairs, a tray of cookies, and a table with copies of the winning stories printed and stapled. I sat in the back, didn't plan to say a word, but then they read mine out loud. Still Here, by Lorene B. I watched the faces in the room. A woman in her 40s wiped her eyes. A high school girl leaned forward, elbows on knees, nodding along like she understood more than she should at that age. No one knew it was me. And still, I felt seen. After the reading, the librarian asked if I wanted to say anything. I almost said no. Then I stood. My voice was quiet, shaky at first, but I said, "Thank you for hearing that story. It came from a real place." A pause, then applause. Not loud, just enough. Later, in the bathroom, the woman who'd cried found me. She looked me in the eye and said, "I think you saved someone today." I didn't know what to say, but I nodded, because part of me wanted to believe her. That night, I wrote a new entry in my journal. It wasn't just me, not the pain, not the silence, not the survival. There were others. There had always been others. And now? Now they were starting to speak too. Because I did. Because one girl from Savannah, too scared to tell her mama the truth, mailed a letter into the world and dared it to be heard. I never thought I'd start anything. But a few months after the contest, the librarian, Miss Gentry, asked if I'd help with a new idea. "We're thinking of starting a writing circle," she said. "For girls. For anyone who needs to say something they've never had the space to say." I felt my heart knock once in my chest. Then I nodded. The first meeting was small. Me, 2 girls from school, and Miss Gentry, sitting with a chipped mug of tea and a clipboard she never used. We didn't call it therapy. We called it Thursday Words. No one had to read aloud. No one had to explain. We just wrote. Sometimes poems, sometimes letters to people who'd never apologize, sometimes nothing but scribbles and breath, and every week the room grew. One girl wrote about her stepfather, another about a youth pastor who made her kneel for blessings she didn't understand until it was too late. One by one the stories came out, and every time I thought, it's not just me. And every time they looked at me like I gave them permission. Not because I had answers, but because I had survived. Because I had said it. One Thursday, a girl named Tasha, barely 16, stood up and said, "When I first heard Still Here, I thought, maybe I can still be here too." I didn't cry, but I held her hand until my fingers went numb. And that night, I wrote in my journal, "Maybe this is what healing looks like. Not forgetting, not forgiving, just making space so others don't have to shrink." Because we weren't shrinking anymore. We were showing up, one word at a time. I hadn't seen Wallace in years. After I turned 18, I left Savannah for a while, got a job in Macon, came back only when Mama fell and needed help around the house. By then, Wallace had aged, skin sagging, voice gone hoarse from too many cigarettes and too few confessions. He still lived in that same house, same porch, same rail, same crooked smile. But something was different now. Me. I was different. It was a Thursday afternoon when I decided to do it, not to get revenge, not for answers, but to close the chapter. I walked up the steps like they didn't creak with history, knocked once. He opened the door, slow, didn't recognize me at first. Then his eyes narrowed. "Well, I'll be Eunice Bradley, all grown up." I didn't flinch. "I came to say something." He leaned against the frame. "That's so." I looked him dead in the eye. "You hurt me." He opened his mouth. I raised a hand. Don't speak. I'm not here for your side. I'm not here for your shame. I'm here to say this. I survived you, and I will never carry your secret again. Silence. Then I turned and walked away. No tears, no trembling, just a spine that had learned to hold its own weight. When I got home, I told Mama. All of it. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, I always wondered. That hurt more than denial. Because wondering and not asking, that's its own kind of betrayal. But I didn't need her guilt anymore. I just needed her to know the truth had found its voice. And it sounded like me. I still live in Savannah. Different house now. Small, quiet, just me and the breeze that comes through the windows when the magnolias bloom. There's a bookshelf by the front door, not for decoration, but for the girls who visit. Girls from the shelter, girls from the writing circle, girls who remind me of myself at 7, at 12, at 15, wide-eyed and silent, waiting for someone to name what happened so they can stop blaming themselves for surviving it. I keep journals there, pens in every color, a sign taped to the side. Write it down. Even if you never say it out loud, your story still matters. Sometimes I sit with them. Sometimes I just leave tea on the table and let them speak in fragments. And always, before they leave, I say the same thing. You are not what they did. You are what you do next. I don't go to church anymore. Not because I lost faith, but because I found it elsewhere. In the spaces where women gather and no one talks over them. In the pages of letters never sent. In the power of being believed. Sometimes I still see Wallace in my dreams. But now, I walk right past him. Because I've learned that healing doesn't mean erasing the pain. It means giving it less power every time you speak. So if you're hearing this now, if you ever tried to tell the truth and no one listened, if someone looked you in the eye and chose their comfort over your safety, this is for you. You survived. You're still here, and the silence they gave you, you don't owe it to anyone anymore. Let it go. Speak your name and walk free. If Eunice's voice moved something in you today, don't let her story sit in silence. Leave a comment below with your city, so Eunice knows she's not alone in this journey. Share your thoughts, your strength, or just type, "Still here," if her truth gave you hope. Like this video if you believe voices like hers deserve to be heard, loud and without shame. And subscribe to the channel so more women like Eunice find the space to speak without fear. Want to hear more stories of survival and strength? Explore our playlist of real-life confessions, true voices from women who've waited decades to tell the truth. Because every view, every comment, every shared word helps break the cycle of silence. Her voice mattered. So does yours. You are not alone. You are not to blame. And your truth deserves a witness.